Yep, live. Okay. Thank you. Good morning, and I want to welcome everybody to the our meeting of our Middlesex County Library Board for Tuesday, October 27, 2020. And I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for provisions of disclosure of pecuniary interest or any general nature thereof. Seeing none, I move to the Middlesex County Library Board meeting held uh, September 22nd, 2020. I look that these minutes be approved. I look for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Gary Gay, second by Councillor Brad Richards. Any further comments or questions with respect to those? All in favor? That's carried. First, we'll move to action items. Item B1, which is a Wi-Fi hotspot lending pilot project. There's a report there. And Lindsay, you want to take us through that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as I put in our strategic planning session, so coming to you with to pursue this Wi-Fi hotspot lending pilot project. So a little background, we know people are blind now more than ever, obviously, when we're in our homes and working from home and accessing more services online. So 30 to 35% of Middlesex County landowners don't have access to the minimum standard of internet service. And you know, I know County Council has had many discussions of this, and we've discussed it in library board meetings in the past as well. So those are, you know, access to high-speed internet. And then we also have our community members who may live in service areas, but the cost is prohibitive, and that's the barrier that exists for them. So there's kind of two aspects to the challenge there with internet service. So with this report, we had the opportunity to work with a company called Khajiit. And so in the past, I know we've had discussions, and Morgan was assisting with this project where we were trying to work with existing internet provider vendors, and we weren't having much luck. For whatever reason, you know, I think some vendors weren't interested in expanding kind of the Wi-Fi hotspot lending project that they may have with some library systems. For example, London Public Library. I think there are some challenges with related to, you know, devices being damaged, patrons going over the data limit, and so there wasn't a lot of interest from the typical internet service providers. So that was a real roadblock for us pursuing this in the past. Now we have this opportunity to work with a company that really manages the devices for us and would make the process really streamlined for us. Through this arrangement, so we would purchase the devices, sign up for data packages. So each device would come with its own data package. There are multiple options. You can get an unlimited data package. You can limit it to a certain number of gigs for the month. So there's a lot of flexibility and ability to work within our budget. That's really attractive with this company. And with Khajiit, they also provide a device management system. So like an online platform that staff can access, help us with the checkout process, with monitoring usage. You can shut down devices if there was the potential that one is stolen or something, kind of those worst case scenarios. This online platform would really help us manage these devices a lot easier. We can set limits in terms of how many gigs a checkout would allow, set timeframes of when you allow the internet to be accessible. This company works a lot with schools and kind of that education sector. So they've set it up often with their customers. They set it up so that these devices shut off at 11 p.m. so that kids aren't streaming things at night and that sort of thing. Restrictions that wouldn't really make sense for our patrons, but this system really gives us a lot of different options and a more control than some hotspot lending systems that we've looked at in the past. So we see a variety of applications for these devices, obviously helping people connect with library resources online with library collections. It's a great way to expand our own resources, but then also helping people connect with government information and programs, connect with service partners who may be operating virtually, holding appointments and client meetings online rather than in person. We also see the potential to support students if that's a need. We feel that right now the schools are supporting students well, really a gap that we've identified, but in the future, if something were to change or there was a need that was seen in the community, could use these devices to support students at home as well. And we see opportunities to align with our community navigator service. So I see the potential to, reserve one or two of these devices just for people who are working with Josh on, housing applications and accessing different resources, training and upgrading their skills and those sorts of uses. So the project could really help us in a variety of ways. As well, I mentioned this a little bit in our first hour, that these devices could be used for outreach activities. So the single Wi-Fi hotspots, the regular ones, lent out to a patron. A staff member could also take one and really set up a program. You have a hotspot, you have a laptop that's with our ILS, our checkout system. You bring some collection items and you can operate a library anywhere in the community. So that's one application. And then the trailer mobile hotspot idea that I mentioned earlier. So that device, the trailer was outfitted with like a larger hub, would allow like 50 to 60 people to log on at one time. And so there's the potential to pursue that project at some point in the future in order to, allow us to create an even greater outreach presence and, pursue some really interesting projects with that trailer hotspot idea. So overall, the report before you indicates that our 2020 budget has $20,000 budgeted for branch technology kits. And these were, funds that would go towards lendable technology, technology that would be used in in-person programming. So it's not, these funds are still sitting there. They haven't been used because we're not able to offer that in-person programming experience. We feel that these funds would be better used towards a project like this, that we can get into people's hands and reach them at home. So I am recommending that we use those existing funds to complete this one-year pilot and then evaluate in 2021 and plan from there whether we extend the project or modify it. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions for Lindsay with respect to this?
I just have one, Jim, if I could. Thank you, Jim. Lindsay, so the device would be what, like an iPad or an actual laptop?
So it's not the device, it's just Wi-Fi hotspot. So I think I closed my presentation, but it's just like a small box. It looks like a mini router. And so you would have to have your own device to connect to it. But that's the other piece. That's a good point. We talked about it in the last hour a little bit, just about looking for those partnerships and those opportunities to get devices into people's hands. So I know that Josh, he is working with an organization. The name escapes me right now, but they're an organization who does that. So as a library, we can kind of decide right now, this is what we can provide, the Wi-Fi hotspots, and then look for those partnerships and those opportunities to make connections with other organizations to get those devices to the people that need them.
Yeah, there was, wasn't there just a small, at the end of your presentation, your first presentation, it looked almost like a little bigger than a wallet, a zip open package that showed that. And that's really what, from what I understand, they look like. And from there, they hook their computer up or their laptop up to that.
So I missed that, Jim. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So Lindsay, I guess to continue, if I could a little bit, and you did touch on that about the residents in Middlesex County that don't have the internet connection. So what happens if they haven't got a device that they can connect onto?
So in those situations, either we, as a library board, we can discuss that, whether that's something that we want to devote funds to in 2021, whether it's, that's a project that can be up for discussion. But the other option would be, finding those organizations that can make those connections. There are some that, offer refurbished computers, computers that are kind of at their end of life from larger corporations, and help get those into people's hands.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay.
Is there any other questions? I think this is a good pilot project for us to try within the budget, and with especially rural Middlesex not having the access that more urban centers have. It'll give us an opportunity to see how we can assist our patrons with the use of this. So I think it's a good project to bring forward. It's kind of like seed money we're putting out there to see how it works, and without a big risk. So is there any other questions for this? Marygate?
Bill, I said one, but I was wrong. I have another, just a comment I want to make, or well, question too.
Well, just
Lindsay,
a second. Is it a question or a comment?
It's both.
Okay, we'll take it. Go ahead.
Lindsay, thank you, Jim. Lindsay, do we know that the amount of people that are using the libraries now, outside the libraries, outside of library hours, certainly, and of course with COVID, that's all the time now, or most of the time, that are using the library connections, the internet connections, at the libraries? Do we have any idea?
I think we are still reporting the Wi-Fi stats, but I'll confirm that. Any Wi-Fi statistic that's beyond our booked computer appointments, those are people using our Wi-Fi from outside of the library. So yes, it's definitely still being accessed, but I'll follow up and make sure that I'll send you those stats if they're not there. Yep.
Okay, so Lindsay, I do look at that, but where do I see that where it says outside?
I'm just going to pop over to the agenda and close. There we go. Okay.
I can't bring it up here because my other iPad is dead. Sorry.
No problem. I'm just popping back and forth here. So number one in the correspondence and information items includes page 2 of that report has the internet statistics, and those are all Wi-Fi users. And then number 3 on the correspondence list is our scheduled computer appointments. So that's where you can see the difference between the two. But say, I'm just looking at the report here. In Glencoe in September, it shows 99 users. So those are users only of Wi-Fi because we can't capture those,
Right.
We know that they're outside. Yeah. So, yeah.
And Lindsay, could you just tell me, if I could, Jim, what it says for Wardsville?
It has 28 sessions in September. 22 August, 25 July. So pretty steady all the way back. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to have to pay closer attention to that one then, because I've missed it all along when I look. Thank you, Lindsay. Sorry, Jim. I'm all done.
That's what we're here for. Any other questions or comments with this report? If not, there is a recommendation, a motion that's prepared. If we're in favor, I'd like somebody to support it. Moved by Kathy Burkhardt-Jessen, seconded by Brad Richards. Further comments or questions? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move to item 2, Strathroy Library Reserve Fund request. Okay, Lindsay, this one's yours.
Yes. So Cindy and I are going to kind of work on this together. Cindy, do you want me to bring up the presentation and walk and move the slides ahead?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll do that. And then here we go.
So good morning, everybody. Lindsay and I prepared a presentation to help walk you through the Strathroy renovations. At the end of the presentation, we also have a couple of options that we want to discuss with the board, in addition to the report that we put forward. Just a reminder that we received the Early On Child and Family Center grant from the province in April of 2018. And we started to work with the Strathroy Caradoc administration in May of 2018. So we want to share some drawings for both the library space and the headquarters space, just to ensure that you do understand the scope of what we're talking about, and also so you can start to see how it would really affect and change the library. It's a very exciting project, so we want to share the drawings to get you excited as well. Previously, we've discussed the addition of the Early On Child and Family Center. That is really going to change the look and feel of the library and really build on that community hub environment that we've been working on for the last number of years, and that we're looking for a new strategic plan as we go forward. So Lindsay, if you can pull up the drawings, did you want to walk them through that?
Yeah, I'm just going to pull them up in a larger format. Let me just see here. If I can.
Lindsay, I just see Marygate, you got your hand up, or?
She might be trying to make the screen larger, and so
Okay.
that's what I'm going to try to increase it. So
That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Can you all see this? These plans? Yep. Okay. Oops. Now I'm gonna mess with my page. Okay. So let me make sure I can move here. So these are the plans for the Strathroy space. So the Early On Child and Family Center space in the Strathroy Library. To the right side of your screen, you'll see it says Children's Reading Section and Early On Child and Family Center. So this is existing space in the library that we are enhancing with this project. So that existing front programming area and public computer area will be modified to create this Early On Child and Family Center, and it will also encompass some of our children's collection and items from our children's area. It doesn't make sense to have two children's areas in the library, so we're really maximizing this space and maximizing this project, moving that library section into this space. So the project includes the creation of like a glass wall with doors that opens into this space. So creating an area where we can contain the sound and the activity, because we know it will be a very active space, and we're excited to show that. But creating this barrier, the glass in the doors, will allow us to close the doors when programs are running and not kind of negatively impact the service at the front desk. And so this space will include a servery, a little kitchenette, which is required in Early On Child and Family Center spaces, a universal washroom, so a family washroom, fully AODA accessible, that can be used by any patron to the library, not just for Early On use, but it is a key feature of that Early On space. Some storage room, and then office space for Early On staff, as well as community partners when needed. So this area, we have the great windows at the front of the space, facing out onto Frank Street. We're really excited to at the potential to have this type of activity in this space. It will really completely change how people view the library outside the building and from inside. So that's the look and feel that we want to create in this space. So that's the front programming area, and now I'm going to move to the next page of the slide. I think it is. If it's going to let me. I think I need to open up the file again. Sorry about that. Just 1 second here. Sorry for okay. Oh, my computer does not like me today. Just going to stop sharing for a second. Sorry about that.
Stop sharing. I was just
So
gonna
what the second so what I'm trying to open is the page that shows the additional programming space that's at the back of the library. So let me just try and open it up again. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to try sharing this again. Here we go. Okay, can you all see the plan again? So this page shows what's called a meeting room boardroom here. It's just labeled that way by the architect. What it is that second early on programming space. So this is at the back of the library. It connects right to that Wright Family Research Room, allows some storage space between the room and the back exit of the library, where we'll be able to store tables and chairs and things like that. But this programming space is really going to allow us to offer a variety of child and family center programming. A number of programs that staff have run in the past have had a child component and an adult or caregiver component, and it's really those two spaces are needed for those sorts of programs. So having this second programming space will allow us to accomplish that. So again, this room has windows out into the library space. We're plan to equip it with a smart TV so that we can project, presentations and potentially have the capability to hold virtual meetings in this space with microphone and camera. So outfitting with the technology that'll help us really make it a really usable space. So those are the two primary areas of change in the library. And then the other aspect of this project is the addition of 3 offices to the Strathroy Library. So here we have them labeled Office 2, 3, and 4. So this is outside of the scope of the early on funding. This is the library side of the project. This will create spaces for library staff to be embedded in the Strathroy Library, staff that previously worked out of the headquarters building. So this will give us that office space for like our children's librarian, our library technology specialist, and for likely for Nadine as well, as she covers both early on and library projects. So those are the 3 spaces for change within this renovation: the front programming space, the rear programming room, and then those 3 offices. So that's the look at the Strathroy Library. I'm just going to page down and find the headquarters space. So these blueprints give just a snapshot of what the proposed work at library headquarters looks like. They don't have a full drawing of the full library headquarters space, but here on your screen you can see the corridor within library office and the universal washroom. So this is the area where the proposed work will take place to add that universal washroom, fully accessible into library headquarters, allowing that separation between a washroom for staff and a washroom for the public, and making it a fully accessible space. Right now, this is like a storage closet, a storage cubby. So it'll be retrofitted to accommodate that washroom. Any questions on the blueprints? I'm just going to stop sharing that and I'll bring the presentation back up. Here we go.
Okay.
Oh, Jim, I think you're muted.
There. Yeah. Where does the library office, then what's going to be used by social services then?
So how will that
You showed where the
look?
washroom, yes.
Mm-hmm.
What's being rectoral there?
So we're still having those discussions as staff to figure out different options. One option is the main center would be to allocate most of the offices for social services use. There would still be a couple offices that would be available for library staff, and then that center area of the building where currently there's shelving and storage space. The idea would be to potentially put some like style workstations in those areas for a couple library office staff members, and then continue to use some of the space for storage and all of the resources and things that library has to support the full library system. So we really think that it can be a really flexible space at library headquarters, and we'll be able to zone it so that there's privacy for social services clients, and so that the two services can kind of work together cohesively.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you want me to go to the next slide, Cindy?
Yes, please.
Yeah, there we go.
So I have a number of slides. We're going to kind of walk through them very fast, but we really wanted to take this kind of step back and really walk you through the whole process and make sure that you have all the information in front of you to kind of make the next decisions as we move forward. So briefly, we want to kind of walk through our leases and the rates. So the Strathroy Caradoc Library Headquarters and the Strathroy Library, and now early on. We want to talk briefly about the capital renovation costs. So we had that original estimate that we were provided in August. We had the RFP bid award, which was in September. And then we had that revised bid award that we're talking about today, which came in October. Next slide. So kind of just of an overview on the lease costs. So currently the lease for the Strathroy Library has expired. So we do need a new lease. It expired in December of 2018. The lease for the library headquarters, it needs to be updated because it's very old. It was actually in place before the comprehensive libraries. It goes from year to year. The existing 2020 lease costs, put a little table down below so you can just see what they look like. Currently, both of those are at the comprehensive library rate, and that library rate right now is $11.28. So you can see from the square footage of the library what the total amount is, and the head office what the total amount is. Next slide. So the lease rates, we have that framework. So we have the basic, we have the enhanced, and we have the comprehensive. And as you remember from the comprehensive, the facilities must meet the enhanced facility criteria, but they also have to be larger than that 6,000 square feet. And then of course they have to have a programming space for the employment, the library related programs, and the secured office for the community providers. Next, Lindsay. So I'm going to start just by kind of quickly walking through the library headquarters or head office. So the original rate for this space was actually more around the enhanced rate. By going back, we were able to figure out that between 2014 to 2015, this rate actually got changed to the comprehensive rate, but no changes were actually made to the space. So below is just a table that shows the difference between the two rates. So if we look at the same square footage, but we look at the enhanced rate of the $8.19 versus the comprehensive rate of the $11.28. It kind of gives you a difference between the two different rates and the impact to the library board. Next slide, Lindsay. So the changes that we just walked you through and we're proposing for the headquarters is that the library now will share this space with social services. So we'll take the majority of social services out of the library and move it here. And it really goes to more of that campus kind of feel, working with the two areas together. So there is no change to the square footage at the head office. And the capital addition that we're talking about is that accessible washroom. And that new rate we're provided is that $21,299. without the HST. And the funding source would be a capital account that we have. Next slide, Lindsay. So the big changes are happening at the Strathroy Library. So as Lindsay walked through, it's that moving of the children's sections to the front of the library with the early on, the addition of those new offices, and the big change where we got that $525,000 grant for the early on child and family center space in the library. And this will also allow us to do the programming areas, that kitchenette or servery, as we talked about, that family accessible washroom, and of course, that big community space. Next slide. So again, we want to show you the overview of the square footage. You will notice that there is a change because there is more shared space now in this proposal. What I mean by that shared space is that family washroom, that community space. So the current, as we only have the library space, which is that 11,052. The new proposal has the early on space and the library space of that 10,083 for a total of that 10,933. So it's a little bit less in the space and a difference of 119. Next page, please. So one of the issues is that we want to bring it up and have a conversation, and we have talked to the Strathroy-Caradoc administration about this as well. It's our early on space, and it's that question around, should it be at an enhanced rate or a comprehensive rate? So down below just kind of shows you an overview, again, of that square footage, similar to the other slide where we're showing you what an enhanced rate impact would be and what a comprehensive rate impact would be. So again, that's the $8.19 and the $11.28. Next slide. So this is, apologize, it's probably small for you to see. It's really a good snapshot that kind of shows you from the three different projections or amounts that we were provided. So in August, it was that initial estimate we were provided. Yeah, the second one is that September amount that we were provided. And that's what we came to the library board, was to make a decision around. And the last one is the revision that we had in October. And just a reminder why the change happened from September to October. It was because we were having original discussions with Strathroy-Caradoc around if we were going to move the library head office into the lower level over at the town hall of Strathroy-Caradoc. The decision was made in September not to do that and actually combine social services with the library head office. Because of that, we got new pricing, and the October is the new pricing. You will notice that it's significantly low if you look at area 1, which is that library early on child and family space. The September amount that we were provided, if you look at the bid, thank you, Lindsay, is that $230,936. When a new amount or revised bid came back, it goes up to that $442,837. And that's the reason we're here to chat a little bit and talk to you again about some options and how do we go forward. This is a significant amount of money, and we really need to think about this. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but part of this is this $175,000 that's related to water and electrical upgrades. And then the bottom, oh, okay. So capital, no, go ahead, Lindsay, that's great. So capital, as I've mentioned before, we got that $525,000 we received from the province for the early on child and family center, and we're very grateful for that. We also got, if you remember, $530,000, and we're currently underway with that capital project that's happening in Ilderton. Our project is supposed to be completed by December of 2020. I am just in the process of trying to get clarification, but I think because of COVID-19 that this has been extended to March 31st of 2021, but I need final confirmation for that. Next slide. So I guess the big concerns, and we have been talking to Strathroy-Caradoc all along about this, is these costs for the electrical service and the water service. So electrical service is that $120,000, the water service is that $55,000. So there's a total of $175,000. So is that really I guess a cost that's part of this project, or is this something that I guess Strathroy-Caradoc would charge us back as we look at our lease rates as we move forward? So the base bid for the library early on piece, sorry, I just got to move my screen a bit. So again, I mentioned this previously, but that base bid, and again, I'm always talking, doesn't include the HST. So that September 16 amount, which we went to the library board for approval, was that 460,436. And October 14th, that moved to now 672,337. Next slide. So again, as I pointed out, the concerns is that 175,000. The provincial capital, which we have capped at 525,000, and that new bid cost at the 672,000. The library still has some renovation cost as part of this project that we need to complete. We've talked about having to move the children's section, moving that up. If we move some of the shelves, for instance, the carpet isn't there underneath it. So we just have some internal pieces that we have to improve just to really make that library space throughout really exciting, really modern to go with all the renovations that we're doing. And I guess the big one is this consistency among library projects in the county. So for this project, we're putting forward a significant amount, and I realize that a lot of this is provincial dollars, but we're also having to pay these high comprehensive lease rates for both the head office and for our early on space. And if you remember our early on space, we are very capped, we're very tight in our dollars. We're not able to get additional dollars at this time, so it's very, well, the difference will have to come from the library board and the county. So next slide. So the decision that was made at the previous library board on September 22nd was not to rent that additional space and to share the head office with, again, head office and social services. Next slide. So the funding sources, again, the provincial grant. In the report that we provided you in the package was the potential to do the Strathroy Library Reserve Fund and $60,000 from that. Next slide. So options that we want to talk to you a little bit is one is the lease rates. So the head office, should this be enhanced or comprehensive? And I'm sorry, I can't give you the background because it was prior to me being in this role, why that rate even changed. The early on child and family center, should this be enhanced or comprehensive lease rate? And then the new leases are required for both the headquarters and the Strathroy Library. So for capital, we have the headquarters, the accessible washroom that we want to move ahead with. And we also have that big project, which is the early on child and family center. And then of course, the discussion around the revised bid of the 672 and then the cap of the grant at 525. Next slide. So options we're kind of putting in front of you, and this will be the discussion point, is one, we can reduce the scope of the project and ask for new pricing. I'm not sure if it has to have a new RFP or not at this point. So for example, we could say, what if we took out the community room? What would that look like if we only did the front? We would still meet what we asked the province for because we needed to do a community space, we needed to have a servery, and we needed to have a family washroom. The community room was really additional space that we could have. If you look at some of the other communities out there that have the early on child and family centers, they have all the components that we put in. They're very dynamic centers. It would be a great addition to our library, but if we had to reduce it and reduce scope, we do understand that. Two, we could go back and talk to Strathroy Caradoc some more and see if they would be willing to pay for that $175,000 for the electrical service and the water service. Three, we could proceed with the library board funding for one, the early on child and family center. So using that grant of the $525,000, using that reserve for the $60,000, and having Strathroy Caradoc pay that remaining. That's what we've proposed in the report that we put in front of you. And of course, the headquarters is that accessible washroom, and we'll be using capital dollars for that. Four, we could proceed with option three, and then go back and talk to Strathroy Caradoc around the ability to reduce the lease for a period of time, because capital was provided with this project. Or 5, we don't move forward at all with this project, or we look at something totally different. If we were to have to go on our own and do a capital project, we'd have to go back to the ministry and talk about the timelines and the deadlines. Next slide. Lindsay, can you do the next slide?
That's the last slide, Cindy.
Oh, is that the last
Yeah.
slide? Okay, sorry. I had a question one online. So
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm going to put that back to the board around, we'll leave it open on that options page. And we're kind of looking for your recommendation on how we move forward. As I pointed out, the report that we put forward in front of you was that option number 3. And it was, again, using the capital money, using that reserve of the 60,000, asking Strathroy Caradoc to pay that remainder. We still would need some direction on where you want to go with the lease rates, because we do have to negotiate the new lease rates. Currently, what we're being asked for is the comprehensive rate for the head office, plus all of the space, the square footage that we've been talking about. So does anybody have any questions that you want further answers on? Or
I've got one if I could, and then I'll go to Kathy Burkhart's got her hand up. But the one I've got is the early childhood. You say you think it might be tentative to March 31st, 2020. Is that construction complete, or is that into project? Is that like a project going?
my understanding is that should be completed by then.
Okay. Kathy Burkhardt, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm, so any other project that happens with a library in a community, the municipality is responsible for the capital project, or like the capital or pricing?
So in terms of traditionally with the comprehensive libraries, the municipalities, local municipalities have paid for that capital.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of unique in that we did get that $525,000 from the province in order to invest in these changes in the library to bring forward that early on child and family center. So that does make that little piece a little different. And we've also done that with Ilderton. So we have paid for that full capital, but we haven't had to pay for any additional other than the grant that we received.
And you're not going back to Ilderton to talk about a lease renegotiation?
We will be talking to Ilderton Middlesex Center in regard to the lease. That library currently is an enhanced library.
Mm-hmm.
So we are having discussions around whether it's the enhanced or whether it's a basic lease.
So I think 3, I think what you've recommended makes sense. I think it is a good compromise for all the parties. But I do think you need to have at least a discussion with regards to the least cost. Just for everything that you have said, I don't think we want to put ourselves in a position where it's either or, but I think you need to have a discussion with them.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Jimmy. I was asking Fred, our CEO, about this on Monday, and I also talked to Rob Lilborn. He's kind of the community guy in this. They are in favor of trying to pick up the difference, I guess, if you want to call it that. And there is a report going to council, I believe, this coming Monday night, I believe. And they've offered a couple of possible solutions. We do have a little bit of COVID money that we can pull from. Plus, there is they're recommending not to do some of the work in our town hall we were going to do in the lower level. No HVAC system. We'd take that out of the budget to help come up with this money. But we'll be going to council on Monday. I don't know the results yet, but it's something that they are recommending to move forward as well. So hopefully there's an answer here, hopefully.
I just just got a couple comments if I could. When I look at this, I see with item 3 as a proposal to move forward with it because we get the grant plus we're using a reserve that was really bequeathed to the Strathroy Library from what I understand. But as far as I believe that we should have a lease agreement established really prior to getting this contract going. And the lease agreement should be identical to every other agreement we got with the lower tier municipalities as far as square space, cost of square space. And to go back to the warden's comment is that every time we did a repair or an upgrade to make anything a comprehensive library, we basically the lower tiers done all the costs associated with it. Now, the only thing we're asking for here is the early on, and it should be almost identical to what we did in Ilderton, because I don't see anything spent from the county with respect to over and above the early on grant money. So just a comment, and I put that out there for further discussion. Thank you. Anybody got any other questions?
I don't think anybody can see me, but I've got my hand up, Jim.
Okay, well, I can't see you through that Middlesex tag, but go ahead, Marygate.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly would not want number 1, and I certainly do not want number 5. But what I do think it's important that we are consistent in how we've handled all the other comprehensive libraries. I realize the reserve was bequeathed to Strathroy Library, but as a board, are we sure that that's where we want to spend that money? So that's just my thoughts.
Yes, the other one that item 2, the 175,000, if that's a capital cost related to the project, I don't know why it's coming back on the county. And nobody's been able to explain it to me other than just saying it's electrical and a water issue. You know, is it electrical water for expansion of another piece of building, or why is that, you know, just a county responsibility for the building? If we're just going to be the tenant, then why are we paying that capital? I don't know if Brad's got an answer for that, or if it's part of your discussion with your staff members, but that's the first thing that came to light to me when I looked at it.
No, Jim, that when we talked yesterday, that wasn't part of it. We're looking at the where we get the funding from, but it is a good question. I wish I could answer it for you. I can't at the moment. I might be able to after Monday, but I can't at the moment.
Okay. But the getting back to the other question, if we were to proceed, you know, then I believe that we should have an agreement or something established as to what our lease is going to be and the lease payments. And it should be identical to every place else with everybody else we deal with the lower tiers within the county. But there's that, and then there's to have that established, and then have established what our total cost is going to be, because you know, there's a loose end with electrical and the water, and I don't want to stall this if we're going to move forward, but I'm wondering if it should be, this decision should be deferred until after Brad's meeting, and we should maybe make a recommendations exactly what we want for this to move forward as a library board. I don't want to jeopardize any funding, and I think we've all agreed that we want to have that early childhood there, but how we move forward with it, and I don't know if it calls to have it deferred and have a special meeting immediately following that when we get our questions answered and have our questions put down in point form, so that there's no I don't want to say nobody's misunderstands exactly what we're asking for. I look for library board's comments on that, or as far as moving forward, how we do. But I first of all, this is a great report, and I wish I would have had it 2 days ago, because it really opens up you know, my train of thought of how this should happen. Kathy, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable solution, Jim, is to defer this, to go back to Strathroy with the questions that you've laid out. They're having their discussion on Monday, and maybe things will be a little bit clearer. I agree with Marygate. I don't think we want to stop this. It's got to move forward. I mean, it's been in front of us for quite some time now. So how that can be done and working with Strathroy, but I think we need to defer it, and then we can just have a special meeting. We can just call a special meeting to deal with it.
Yes, Brad?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea too, Jim. I think it gives us a chance to talk about it at our council, which we haven't, because this all just came forward recently, and see if there's a way we can work it out. If not, at the very worst case scenario, is there some areas we can cut back on, as Lindsay said earlier. But that would be a last resort to me. But the project overall, I think, should go forward. The early on thing is just too valuable not to continue.
Okay, then I guess what we do is how are we going to get what the board agrees we should be asking for exclusively and explicitly for Strathroy Caradoc to Strathroy Caradoc's council with respect to the lease agreements, and then this early on and how we move forward with it and the limit of our spending.
I've got my hand up, Jim.
Okay, well, let's go to Marygate then with her hand up. I'm sorry, I don't have you on my screen.
That's
Move it
okay.
down.
So I guess I'm asking that if any of the other comprehensive libraries needed upgrades to their electrical system or water service, who would be responsible?
Well, I could speak to the one that I was involved with, which is Thames Center, is that they paid everything with respect to the building, other than, what we expect from the library, which is the shelving or certain items they want within the building. But the actual building was right down to the fire protection, everything else was at the cost of the lower tier municipality. And I believe that was similar to Lucan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So as a board, are we going to ask that question of Strathroy Caradoc at their meeting on Monday? If you want to move forward on this?
I think we should make our board's position known, that it should be similar, not similar, but identical to even like what we did with Park Hill, because that was one of the discussions we had when our previous member was on that was involved in this, was that all of them would be the same. And I think it's if I was just I can't speak from a county's point of view, but I think from a library board point of view, it should be identical across our board with the rates we're paying to the municipalities for these lease spaces. And when I look at your at the square footages and so on, right through the headquarters, 3,608, and then the size of the library piece, I think that's what it should be. And my question is, should the lease rate be identical to what Lucan Badolf, or not Lucan, but Middlesex Center is for that Ilderton space? But I'll go to Kathy, and then I've got Marygate.
So, 7 minutes ago, I said I was fine with the compromise, and I am. Like, I just want to see this project get going. But I think the point that has been made is that all of this negotiation has been at a staff level, and the board hasn't really had the opportunity to let Strathroy know, what we want for direction. And I think it is fair to let them know, to say, we need to be consistent across the board. This is what we expect. And I think that can be written in some sort of letter after this is pushed through motion-wise, and Lindsay can get it over to Strathroy to be included in their discussion on Monday. Consistency across the board, I think, is obviously.
Yep. Okay, Marygate, you had your hand up?
Actually, Jim, I didn't.
Oh, sorry.
I
Adjusting
agree
your
with
screen,
Kathy.
sorry.
Yeah, I agree with Kathy. So I don't know how you want to move forward with that, but
I will
guess
agree.
we're looking for some direction.
I think the staff's done a very good job getting you this far, but we're at the point now where we've got to say, in order for this to move ahead, we have to have certain parameters covered off. and they should be consistent across our county's position, our county board, or the library board's position. So I guess what I'm looking for is then, if we're done the discussion, a deferral motion, and then I agree with you, Kathy, that we should have staff prepare a letter that goes to Strathroy laying out the plus and minuses of what we want within this project and how the funding will be paid and what we expect from Strathroy CareDoc with respect to their capital costs to these structures, and then bring it back to our board with their outcome in order to move it ahead.
I'll move exactly what you said, Chair.
I'll second it.
Well, just remember, we don't have Kathy here as a secretary, so I hope the secretary's got
It's
down
being
that well.
recorded. It's being recorded. Go back. So,
Being recorded, Jim, so it's
Okay.
and to the point being that everybody wants to move forward on this, I guess I might add to that. You know, if need be, we have a special meeting to deal with this after Strathroy talks about it.
Yeah, I would be prepared to call one right away as soon as we get the report back from Strathroy to say yay or nay, and they're in agreement, and then we can make a rational decision how this moves forward. Yeah. So that's a deferred motion with those comments. Brad, you had a question?
Yeah, just in talking to both the staff members at our town hall, that they are in favor of this. I didn't hear any negative, or they really want to make this work. So I mean, that's a hopeful sign too. It's been at staff level, now it needs to come back and be official, I guess now is the way I put it. But so hopefully, I'm pretty hopeful on the whole thing. Other than maybe some minor changes here and there, but I do see it going through at some point.
Well, I think, like Brad, to be honest with you, Strathroy ends up with an enhanced assessment or enhanced building that's an asset to them. So, and we've got a first-rate tenant, so I would think they'd want to move that forward. So, but just my view. Okay, so then we've got a motion. Moved by Kathy Burkhardt Jessup. I need a seconder.
I already seconded, Jim.
Okay,
Yep.
then that's duly seconded. Any further comments on it? All in favor? Good. Then we'll wait till we get a report back from their Middlesex or Strathroy CareDoc meeting, and then we can call a meeting sometime towards the middle of later next week, and possibly get this resolved. Okay, thank you very much. So that takes care of that action item, Strathroy Library. Now we'll move down to correspondence information items. Next we'll deal with item C1, library information, October 27th system in resources, 2020-2019 comparison. Okay, if anybody has any question, any of this, they can put their hand up. The next one is the accounts payable, C2, library information to October 27th. The accounts payable to October 16th for $236,406.65. Item C3 is curbside pickup computer appointments. Any questions? Okay, next one is item C4, library info, October 27th, virtual programs, participations to September 2020. Item C5 is our library information, October 27th, social media activities, September 2020. Next is our early on, item C6 is library information for October 27th on the Middlesex early on calendar. Next is item C7, a library information, October 27th, community navigator press release. Questions? Next is item C8, library information, October 27th, for Arturo Zaret and Goss Global. Just a letter. Next is our statement of revenue and expenditures, item C9 to October 27th. Any comments on that or questions? Lindsay, at all, anything on that?
Just the statement shows that we still have capital projects that, we haven't been able to complete because of COVID-19. So all of these things will come together, will impact our surplus moving into the next year. Obviously, we have a significant staffing surplus, so we'll be able to discuss the budget a bit more in detail in November at the next meeting when we come up with the draft budget as well. But a couple months, we are still working on the project that we are able to complete for this year. So we'll give you
Thank you. Okay, then if no other questions, okay, then I look for a motion to approve item C1, library through to C9 library to receive for information. Moved by Brad, seconded by Marygate. Further comments, all in favor? That's carried. Any inquiries? Any new business? I just, maybe I'm going back to the motion we made, but I'm very concerned with how it got from 430,000 to over 600,000. So I think that's something when staff writes that letter, we should make them aware of that. It's a shocking change from a September meeting to October meeting. So that's all. And I'll put that under inquiries. But under new business, there's a list of our next meetings. Okay. And then I look for first and second reading of a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the County Middlesex Library Board meeting for October 27th. Mover and second, first Marygate and Kathy Burkhardt, first and second reading. All in favor? It's carried. And I look for third and final reading of the bylaw, confirmatory bylaw. Moved by Brad, seconded by Kathy Burkhardt, all in favor? It's carried. If there's no other questions, I look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Marygate, seconded by Brad, all in favor? Great. Well, thank you very much. I think we came to a good conclusion for that, how we move forward with Strathroy Caradoc. And I think with any luck, we'll have this thing humming within another